Welcome, everyone. My name is David Boan, and I am with the Cathedral of the Rockies in Boise, Idaho. And I'm with you today, together with a wonderful team, to talk with you about Love Beyond Borders, the Interfaith Campaign to End the Pandemic. I want to thank you for joining with us. And I'm going to do a couple of housekeeping things and then do some introductions, and then we'll start into our program. So first of all, we have a panel here today. We have the pleasure of being joined by Bishop Elaine Stanovsky. We're really privileged to have her talking with us about the role of the church, and then she'll also be doing some closing remarks for us. We have Leslie Goldman, UNICEF-USA Global Partnerships, and she and her colleague Alex, who's a manager of global partnerships, will be talking with you about the role of UNICEF and our partnership together with them. We also have Mary Lou Greenwood from UMC Global Ministries, Emily Crone from the Abundant Health Network, and Linda Anthony, who is my colleague from Cathedral of the Rockies. I want to say thanks to our entire panel, and we really appreciate that they are making their time to join together with us. We are recording this webinar, and we will see that the recording is made available afterwards. And just a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, because of the structure of the webinar, it looks like people won't be able to turn on their audio during the question and answer period. So we're going to have to rely on the Q&A box and also the chat box. So we will set aside a block of time for a discussion together with you, and want to invite you to put questions into the Q&A box, and then our panel will respond to those when we get to that period in time. And then if you have something to call attention to, I think there's also a raised hand function. So again, we want to be somewhat casual about this and really invite your participation. It's really important for us that we craft our comments and responses to what is most important to you. So please feel free to share your questions with us. So as I mentioned, I'm going to provide some background and how it is that Cathedral of the Rockies got into this program. We're going to talk a little bit about the role of UNICEF in this campaign. And then we want to talk with a little bit about strategies and how you can work together with us. So let me begin, if I may, with some of the background. So this program actually began almost a year ago with the mission team at the Cathedral of the Rockies Amity campus. And for those of you who don't know, that's a smaller church in the southern suburbs outside of Boise, Idaho. We have a mission team that, because of the pandemic, have been meeting online. And such as many of you may have experienced, the pandemic was really making it difficult for people to connect with one another and to maintain many of our programs and missions. And so it prompted us to talk about, how do we maintain our mission presence during a pandemic? What can we do so that we can continue to reach out to others, even where we have to be very cautious about being face-to-face? And in the midst of that conversation, we talked together with some friends of mine in Canada who had started a program called Love My Neighbor. That program was based on the inspiration of one person who thought, in this pandemic, we really need to engage people in thinking about the privilege they have of being vaccinated and how they need to pay that privilege forward. And so it started a campaign where the Love My Neighbor team was reaching out to organizations, to churches, denominations across Canada, and saying, now that you have had the benefit of vaccination, make a donation equal to the value you've received. And then through UNICEF Canada, we will support the purchase of vaccines for the majority world. When our missions team talked with that group, we were really inspired by what they were doing. And we felt that it was really important for a variety of reasons. Probably most of all, we really felt that the current inequity in the distribution of vaccine was an injustice. It really represented yet again how the majority world enjoys advantages not available to the rest of the world. And so we really thought that for people of faith, it was really important for us to demonstrate that we recognize that there's an injustice and look at correcting that as a demonstration of our compassion for our neighbor and our desire to speak out about an injustice. We saw wearing face masks and getting vaccinated for COVID as a part of our commandment to love your neighbor, but then to go beyond that and demonstrate compassion for others by supporting the COVAX program. And so for us, it was important for a number of other reasons as well. One is to help people to continue to put their faith in action. We're very aware of a broad decline in participation in the church. And we think that the antidote to that is to help people to see there are practical ways that they can put their faith into action and that the church is the agent of them being able to do that. And so it was important because in this virtual campaign, we actually create a variety of ways to join together with us. And we're going to share some of those with you later on. It also spoke to a discussion we were having about really who is our neighbor. Is our neighbor just the person immediate to us, or can our neighbor be on the other side of the planet? And we really felt that our faith does not put up geographic or political boundaries around who is our neighbor. Our neighbor is whoever we see who is in need. And in this virtual world, that can be anywhere in the world. And so then how do we demonstrate that we care about this? And again, participating in this program and engaging our faith colleagues to work together with us is a demonstration to the rest of the world that the faith community is aware and cares about what is happening in the majority of the world and how many people continue to struggle. In fact, the more we discussed and the more we looked at this, we really became increasingly aware of all the various ways this pandemic is impacting people's lives. It's impacting child development, delaying education. It's impacting mental health, especially through isolation. It's impacting poverty. Much of the progress made in ending poverty around the world is now going in the wrong direction, largely because of the pandemic. It's increasing hunger as distribution of food is disrupted. And so in many ways, people's lives around the world are being impacted, and all of that creates an urgency to do something. And so we reached out to UNICEF-USA, and we said, we would like to do something similar to our friends in Canada. Would you consider joining together with us? And so there's where we were able to form a partnership together with them. And our friends, Alex and Leslie, will say more about that in a few moments. But first, with that brief introduction, I'd like to hand off to Bishop Elaine Stanovsky and have her say a little bit more about the United Methodist Church involvement in this campaign. Bishop Elaine.
Thank you, David. And it's a joy to have met you just today in this way with this important work. As United Methodists, we're called, as David said, to put our faith into action. It goes back to the very core of the Methodist movement. Which is why I'm here today, to invite you to join me in saving lives by supporting United Methodist Advance number 3022671. And I'm sure you're going to hear that and see it many more times this morning. Under the name Love Beyond Borders, an interfaith movement to end the pandemic, an idea that came from the church in Idaho, Boise First United Methodist Church in Idaho, in the area that I serve, the greater Northwest area of the United Methodist Church. So first, let's talk about why United Methodists are involved in fighting COVID-19. Love is a core value for people of many faiths and no faith. You may have heard that Methodist Christians believe that our love can be perfect. Not that we'll ever attain perfect knowledge or perfect judgment or be able to act in perfect ways, but that through prayer, study, practice, and the correction of the people around us, we might be able to grow to love as God loves. Jesus taught that the greatest commandment is to love God and neighbor as ourselves. Any of us who are protected by the vaccine and who have an ounce of love of God and neighbor have asked ourselves 1,000 times during the last year and a half, how can we put our love to work to protect people from the virus around the world who don't enjoy the protections that we have? Love drove David Boan to look for a way to protect people and prevent the devastating spread, illness, and death from COVID-19. As you've heard, as head of the missions team at Boise First, love led him to urge his church to find a way to get COVID-19 vaccinations to people in places in the world who don't have access. And from there, to work with our great United Methodist connection to invite the Oregon Idaho Annual Conference and the General Board of Global Ministries and you and me and all of the people in the great global United Methodist connection to partner with UNICEF and COVAX to distribute COVID-19 vaccines around the globe. Today, we have a way to put our love to work, saving lives in this way. David Boan, I want to thank you in this context. I want to give thanks first to God for placing that love, that driving love in your heart. And I give thanks to you for finding this way for us to join you in this life-saving effort. Oh, and did I mention that it's not only about love, it's also about science? I'm not going to go into that today, but Methodists from the very beginning have believed that science can help us love better. And so we use science and we follow the science and we support the science in this epidemic, this pandemic. United Methodists have a long history of being involved in public health efforts. Remember, Imagine No Malaria? By partnering with organizations like the Gates Foundation and the World Health Organization and others, we United Methodist raised nearly $70 million in less than 10 years. The death rate from malaria during that time dropped from 1 person in every 30 seconds to 1 person in every 2 minutes. That's an amazing story. So why now is equitable vaccine distribution important? Well, let's go back to Jesus. Jesus said that he came so that people could live life to the fullest. Everyone should have the right to live fruitful, meaningful lives, regardless of who they are, where they live, or what means they have. Today, 51% of the world population has received at least 1 dose of the vaccine, but only 4.2%, 10%, significantly less than 10% of the population living in low-income countries have received 1 dose. Our churches here in the United States, in the greater Northwest area, I'm sure in most of your areas, and around the world as they've been able, have been doing a great job of taking care of themselves and surrounding communities on a local basis during the pandemic, through education programs, providing food, sewing masks, offering vaccine distribution clinics, online worship, on and on, providing school supply kits as schools have reopened. But we know that local action in a pandemic is not enough, and we can do more, which is why this is such an exciting and timely partnership that Boise First United Methodist Church and the General Board of Global Ministries have formed with COVAX, which provides the vaccines, and UNICEF, which provides the distribution system. And we're involved now in partnerships with Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Mennonite, and Greek Orthodox relief groups and foundations who have joined in, and others that are considering it now. Just $37 can provide 10 people with 2 doses of the vaccine. This is about love. It's about justice and equity, and it's about love. We just have to share the abundant life that we enjoy, that is in our hearts, and that is within our means. And so today I invite each one of you to join me in giving personally and asking others to join you with gratitude for all that we have received in our own lives. We can take love beyond the borders. How many lives will we save for Jesus? Back to you, David.
Thank you, Bishop Elaine. That was wonderful. I'm going to hand off to Leslie and Alex. They have a short video about UNICEF, and then tell us about the work of UNICEF. Yeah, I think we're not getting the audio.
Largest vaccine buyer. This is how UNICEF helped. What does it take to make history? What does it take to fight for equality? To race to bring a pandemic to a halt? A pioneering spirit, relentless innovation, 75 years of delivering results, a global network of partners, the passion of a team who will never give up. This is how UNICEF became the largest vaccine buyer and distributor in the world. This is how UNICEF helps vaccinate nearly half the world's children every year in the hardest to reach places. Our systems were made for this. Our people were made for this. We know we can make history happen. We can get the COVID-19 vaccines to at least 20% of the world's population by the end of the year, delivered to the countries that need assistance, for the healthcare workers and vulnerable populations, the people who need it most. But we need you, because history is not made just by one, but by the collective, by the choices we make, and by the partnerships we forge. Together, we can make this happen. Together, we can make history.
Oh, you're on mute, Leslie. There you go.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. I'm Leslie Goldman with UNICEF-USA. We heard such inspirational voices from David and from Bishop Elaine. Thank you all for your passion and your initiative in supporting vaccine equity. I want to start by extending a heartfelt thank you to the entire United Methodist community, and especially Global Ministries and UMCOR for their $1 million commitment to the interfaith movement and the pandemic. UNICEF and UNICEF-USA's work wouldn't be possible without strong partnerships like the one we have with UMCOR. We also count as partners, as Bishop Elaine said, fellow Methodist churches like Cathedral of the Rockies, which continues to raise funds and encourage friends to join the interfaith movement, as well as other faith partners that have signed on to the campaign, including the Mennonite World Conference, Olam, Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation, and the Muslim American Leadership Alliance, to name just a few. It's really so powerful to see a truly interfaith coalition joining with us in this historic initiative. We're all united by our shared values and our mission to help children around the world access the resources that they need most to survive and to thrive. And today we have the opportunity to reflect on the generous support and progress, but also to look to the future, assess what we collectively can do to make sure that the world is vaccinated, because I think it's clear that no one is safe until everyone is safe. So the question, why UNICEF? Why is UNICEF leading the global effort at equitable vaccine distribution? I think you could say that UNICEF has been preparing for this moment for its entire 75-year history. Before COVID, UNICEF was already purchasing 2 billion vaccines each year for routine immunizations and was reaching almost half the world's children with vaccinations for diseases such as polio and measles. So we have the experience, expertise, and goodwill to get the job done, but we can only do that with strong partners like UMCOR. As we all know, we're in the midst of the largest vaccine effort in history. We've made enormous strides in 2021 with over 441 million COVID-19 doses delivered, but we need to keep up the momentum in order to get the world vaccinated. UNICEF aims to distribute 3 billion doses of vaccines globally by the end of the first quarter of 2022, which would reach 30% of the population, including 1.4 billion vaccines projected to be delivered by the end of 2021. It's only with the help of faith partners that UNICEF is able to accomplish life-saving work in the most vulnerable communities around the world. In many countries where we work, UNICEF partners closely with religious leaders to engage communities. Faith groups have long answered the call when natural or man-made disasters have struck, whether it's support for earthquake response in Haiti or reaching refugees from Afghanistan with assistance. Last year, it was to encourage communities to practice hand washing and social distancing. Now we're working with religious leaders to share accurate information and build demand for vaccines. This movement is only a continuation of UNICEF's long history of partnering with religious communities of all faiths on a wide range of issues that affect children. Faith-based organizations like UNICEF understand the importance of serving the world's most vulnerable populations. I thank you again for joining UNICEF in this historic moment, for your commitment and for your dedication to ending the pandemic together. I knew that was going to happen. That was my dryer, the challenges of working from home. Sorry for that terrible noise if you heard it in the background, but perfect transition that I invite David Boan back and my colleague Alex to share the engagement strategies for the Love Beyond Borders interfaith movement to end the pandemic. Thanks all.
Thank you, Leslie. That was great.
Thank you.
And I like the personal touch also. That was terrific. Alex, did you want to add on to anything to Leslie's comments before we talk about engagement?
No, I think Leslie couldn't have said it any better. We've been made for this historic moment, and I'm just so happy that we're bringing such a diverse faith communities together for vaccine equity.
Yeah. Well, let me say a little bit about the strategies that we're using in this program. And then as we talk about those, we're also going to share with you some of the resources that are available to you in working together with us. And just to jump back to some of my opening remarks, one of the reasons that the mission team got involved in this in the first place, and one of our key strategies, was to create a vehicle through which people can become more engaged in their community, put their faith into action. And so as we think about strategies, we try to think about things that are available to anyone beyond making a donation. And in fact, as important as those donations are ultimately to getting people vaccinated, we will be more successful at donation if we are first successful at engaging people and making them more aware and creating a sense of concern and urgency about the inequity in the distribution of the vaccines. So to that in mind, we actually have 3 strategies that we're emphasizing and building our resources around. And those 3 strategies are advocacy, awareness, and then contribution. And if I may share my screen for just a moment, I'll show you the Love Beyond Borders website. Now there's a couple of online resources. Alex is going to introduce to you the resources that UNICEF has put together online. We also have a Facebook page, but we're using the website to post resources and stories. And within those, organized under the section of Your House of Worship, and it's slowly moving over, there we go. You'll see within that several different kinds of resources under these headings. And so, for example, under awareness, we want to provide not only talking points about Love Beyond Borders, but also talking points about COVAX, about the pandemic, some guidance in terms of how do you talk to your friends? How do you talk to your family members? How do you respond to those people who may be hesitant about the vaccine? And we're going to say a little bit more about that in the Q&A section. So why do we put so much emphasis on awareness? Well, basically, this is where the church has a very important role. Every time a church creates a mission team, puts together a program, holds a class, puts together a Bible study, it is giving people experience and skills in how to engage with others in the community and those in their neighborhood. And so just being able to talk with people in a way that is understanding and respectful is an important way to influence your community. And helping people to overcome that hesitation and helping them to understand how the rest of the world is going to be impacted is one of the most fundamental and important issues in our overcoming the pandemic. And so we wanted to make a number of tools, and we're happy to create more. And so if people see that there's a particular need, a particular issue, a barrier they've run up against, we want to be a resource to you to create whatever guides, suggestions, or supports we can put together and make available to you through this system. There are ideas here for your own fundraising campaign. There are ideas here for advocacy. Think of advocacy as speaking to those in a position to make a decision. Leaders in your own community, where you might engage them in supporting the campaign, as opposed to awareness, which is to make people more conscious and understanding of what is going on. And then lastly, we also are looking at certain specific topics related to the pandemic, because this is more than people contracting COVID. It's also about the broader impact, as I mentioned, on children, on families, the way in which it's creating hunger, for example. And so we've also put together resources related to how the pandemic and global hunger are interacting in a very destructive way, and have a number of video resources here that you are welcome to use and share them in your own church, or share them with your friends, or however you would like to use them. And as we go along, we're going to engage with other topics that pertain to the pandemic. And then lastly, you'll see on the side of the screen, recent posts. We're also posting stories from other areas in the world where people are dealing with the pandemic. Want to invite you, if you have a personal story about somebody's work to help their community with the pandemic, or how the pandemic has impacted your church, your home, your friends, whatever it may be, we're really interested in collecting those stories as part of our effort to both raise awareness, but also provide resources for pastors as they share information with their own church. So those are the strategies: awareness, advocacy, and contribution. Those are the resources that we have in place now, and we're updating every week. And that's only part of it. UNICEF has also put together some great resources. And so Alex, you want to share a little bit about those?
Absolutely. Thank you, David, and thank you for your leadership. And as I mentioned, it's such a pleasure bringing such a diverse group of faith communities in this campaign. And so what I'm going to do, as David mentioned, there are several materials that we have put together as UNICEF. So if you don't mind holding on a second. Can everyone see my screen? Yes?
Yep,
okay,
got it.
Wonderful. So what I want to do is really go through this website. As you may see, we have several resources on the right-hand side where you can access our frequently asked questions of the End the Pandemic campaign. You can also see that you can donate to the campaign itself, and you can select your affiliation to do that. But as David mentioned, our three calls to action are to raise funds for vaccine equity, raise awareness, and advocate for vaccine equity. So you will see on the right-hand side of the website that you can raise awareness about the crisis by accessing our Interfaith Movement one-pager, which does a great job of detailing in a very brief way what the campaign is all about. A two-pager, which will go into more detail. And also, we're sharing our webinar, our first webinar that we had with the campaign, which took place on October 7th. And really on October 7th, we had leaders from our main founding partners of the campaign. where we, as Leslie mentioned, we have Buddhist Suu Kyi Foundation, we have Global Ministries and UMCOR, Mennonite World Conference. We also had Cathedral of the Rockies, of course, and Olam and many other partners that really joined this call to talk about how important it is to their own faith community, this call to action of vaccine equity. You can also access our advocacy and engagement portion of the campaign by clicking on Advocate for Vaccine Equity. And what that will do is ask your own local representative to push forward for donating additional vaccines to COVAX. Now, a great part of this website is you could see the impact of your support that all your dollars will have on vaccine equity. And Bishop Elaine was really terrific in mentioning that $37 could provide 10 people with 2 doses of the vaccine. $100 could provide 10 diagnostic test kits to help increase the identification of infections. $1,000 could provide the delivery of vaccines to fully vaccinate 250 people. So these are all very, very nice for communicating with interested donors and people who are interested in the campaign. It paints a very nice picture, a wholesome picture of the impact that the donations will have. And then an exciting part of this website is reporting the progress and the success that we've had so far. We've raised 10% of the $1 million goal, and I'm sure we will continue to do that in the coming months. And that is all I had for when it comes to UNICEF's materials. All of these resources are meant to answer any questions that you may have, but please feel free to type in your questions on the chat or in the Q&A section. We'll address them shortly. Thank you, and I'll hand it back to David to talk about how you can partner with us.
All right, thank you, Alex. So one of the ways that people can partner with us is through the advance, and I'm going to hand off to Mary Lou to talk with us about how the advance works.
Thank you, David. The advance is an amazing part of our United Methodist connection. It allows individuals and churches and Sunday school classes and youth groups to invest in projects that help alleviate suffering around the world. The advance is now 70 years old, and it was designed very specifically to be an accountable giving channel for United Methodists. The Advance for Love Beyond Borders, number 3022671, has been set up as a route for United Methodists to give through a very familiar avenue, to be able to have their contributions credited to their local church and annual conference, and to help us participate in this interfaith campaign. It's only been a few days since the advance has been up, and already we've raised $14,000. All of the money that comes in through the advance will be released on a monthly basis to UNICEF for the interfaith movement to end the campaign. So I invite you to think faithfully and prayerfully about the way you as individuals and as your church can get involved in sharing the relief that comes from having a vaccine against COVID-19. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mary Lou. So now we just want to say a little bit about some of the ways that you can work together with us. And I'll just introduce a few strategies. There's a few that I've mentioned already. Then Emily is going to talk with us about the Abundant Health Network, and Linda Anthony is going to talk about her experience in being a volunteer. So as I mentioned to you, one of the ways to contribute would be through the resources that I just shared with you on the website. A resource can be anything that another person might use to support their effort related to the campaign. Stories are one example. Or if there are other kinds of guidance, examples, templates, whatever it may be that you have found valuable and that others might also find valuable. We're willing to be, if you will, kind of the clearinghouse or the vehicle through which those can be shared with others. So I invite you both to take whatever may be useful to you, but also, if the opportunity is there, to consider contributing. Another unique way in which you could work together with us, our mission team actually talked about, what about the small churches out there? Here in Idaho, which is a very rural state, as when you get outside of Boise, there are a lot of small Methodist churches. And a small church might think, well, we really don't have a big team. We really don't have the resources to carry out a big campaign. But we do have one or maybe a few people who would like to do something if there was some way in which they could join together with others. And so our mission team wants to extend an invitation. If you would like to be a member of a virtual team and participate together with us in this campaign, there are particular ways that you can work together with our team, or you could even just sit in on our team discussions to be able to see what we're doing and how there may be ways in which some of our efforts could particularly apply to your own community and your own church. Feel free to reach out to me, and I will put my email address and also the link to the website that I shared with you in the chat box in just a few moments. So then the other is, maybe you're a larger church and you have your own mission team, and we will be happy to be a collaborator with you. If there are things that we have learned that might be useful to you, we're happy to share those. If you would just like to be able to come together as collaborating partners periodically to share what we're learning and support one another, we are happy to do that. So we're really flexible about that. We really want to be a resource in whatever ways are useful. And especially in our pandemic world, I think in a way we have the opportunity to do that virtually, which really makes it easier for us to reach out irrespective of geography. So those are just a few of the ideas. And I'm going to hand off next to Emily, who's going to share a little bit about the Abundant Health team and how to work with them.
Hi, I lead the Abundant Health team for the Oregon-Idaho Annual Conference, but I'm also part of a network of Abundant Health leaders across the United Methodist Connection. And we meet on a regular basis and had a lot of topics that we talk about and support each other. But I want you to know that as David invited you to join in a collective group to support this work to end the pandemic, I also want to invite you to call on me for any resources that you are looking to and need. For example, I've been talking with our Western Jurisdiction mission interpreter, is Courtney Randall. She's part of our Abundant Health team, our Abundant Health Network, and she is going to write for us some curriculum for children. Could be children's messages or a Sunday school lesson or something like that to introduce this opportunity to our children. If you remember, when we were doing Imagine No Malaria, we had lots of those resources developed, sermon starters, other things like that. So we're going to be looking to add these kinds of items to our resource list on the website for Cathedral of the Rockies, and potentially for the Abundant Health link at the Oregon-Idaho United Methodist Church, umoi.org, and then just search for Abundant Health under our mission work. So we have a lot of things that are being developed. We have a lot of things already in place. I especially like some of the things about advocacy. As we know, with Imagine No Malaria, what really struck me and called me to action was that understanding that people were dying from something that we had eliminated in the United States in the early 50s. Well, you know what? We have the ability in this country, in the United States, to eliminate or end the pandemic as people become vaccinated, and we have the resources to make it happen. now we need the will sometimes, I think, to make it happen in some areas. But I do know that we have what we need financially to make that happen, and others don't. And I'm saying, why? Everyone's child is a child of God. And that called me to action with Imagine No Malaria. And when I was invited to join the team at Cathedral of the Rockies last March, it was that same call that called me to engage here. I want to be a support to anyone who has questions as another member of this team, and help you to get what is needed, whether it's a flyer that you can post on a wall or put in a newsletter, or share with someone else who wants to share it at their local dry cleaners. The information is readily available, and what isn't created, we will find the resources to get created to support. And I just want to thank you all for being here today. And if I can serve you in any way, please don't hesitate to email or call me. And I'm going to put my cell phone number and my email address in the chat, so you can pull it down if you'd like to. I don't work alone. I work with this fabulous team from Cathedral of the Rockies, and I look forward to helping you. Yes, a bulletin insert is absolutely, Gail, we're going to come up with, and I look forward to having one for you. And there may already be one there, and if there's not, we certainly can develop. And we might even ask you, Gail, to join in to help us do that. So thank you very much. Happy to be here, and so grateful for all of your support in taking the time to be with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And now I want to hand off to my friend and colleague, Linda, who's going to say a little bit about volunteering. Linda?
Yes, good morning to everyone. I didn't know what David really wanted me to say here this morning, but what I want to say is that I've been a person who liked to do service my whole life. And so when the first flyer came out about Love Beyond Borders, and it said things like, this is for justice, and this is for equality and equity. And those are words that just kind of spoke to me to begin with. And then when he got to the point where he said, oh, this is for vaccine distribution, I just went, yes, my heart says you got to help with this. So I called David and asked to be on the team. And luckily he said yes. But since then, we've been working together to get out flyers and make things that other people could use, trying to get more volunteers so that we can go out to the various churches and help them if possible. We want both the churches of Methodist and the Interfaith group to feel that we want to share with them. And we want definitely to increase the number of vaccines given. So if anyone is interested in volunteering, I'm sure David would just love to hear everyone's ideas, and would definitely like help. If you would have a few minutes a week or a month, that would be good. Thank you, David, for the opportunity. This has been wonderful. I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Linda. Linda's one of our wonderful volunteers. I'm not sure she realized how much work was going to be involved in putting this together, but she's really stepped up to the plate, and we're really thankful for her and our other volunteers who are helping with the program. So now we want to move to the Q&A portion. We have one question in the Q&A box. We have a couple that we got ahead of time. And so let me begin with the one that is in the box. And then I'm going to hand off to Alex for a couple we got before regarding the use of the funds. So how do faith communities continue to best address the resistance to the vaccine in both the US and around the world? I'm sure you can appreciate we could probably do several webinars just on that topic. How do we begin to overcome some of that resistance? But that resistance is important in regard to this campaign, because if people don't see the value in the vaccine, then they are not likely to see the value in increasing access to the vaccine. So it is something that we want to speak to. It's part of our human nature that it's difficult for people to really pay attention to something that seems distant and maybe uncertain as to whether or not it's going to directly impact them. That is, how is providing vaccine in Africa or South America going to have an impact upon me? And so our challenge then is, how do we make that seem real to people? Well, in general, the way in which we tend to make things real is to bring them into a relationship and part of our, if you will, conversation with others. And so as people begin to see that it is real to me and we talk together and have a relationship, it increases their awareness of how it could also be real to them. If we have a connection and you see that in some ways we are similar, we live in the same community, we have similar backgrounds, similar values, and I see something that I really care about, to the extent that we connect, that increases the potential that you will think about, gee, maybe I should care about this also. And so it goes back to raising awareness. It goes back, if you will, to the willingness to get out and have conversations. People typically do not change by information alone. In fact, I think that's one of the biggest misunderstandings about campaigns. Information by itself doesn't change people. It's information in a context, and especially information in a relationship that is respectful and understanding, and one in which then people begin to have an exchange, not disgorging information, but actually have an interaction about it. That is one of the most powerful things that people can do. And it speaks to the important role that the church plays in the community in equipping and preparing people to have those kinds of conversations in their community. And so with each one, we take a tiny step toward increasing the sense of awareness, increasing understanding, increasing compassion. So thank you for that question. Alex, I'm going to toss the next one over to you, which has to do with the donations received so far. Is it possible for UNICEF to say where has some of that money gone? What has been the impact of that?
And if I may add to what you were saying, David, because you're touching on something that's so important to this campaign and vaccine hesitancy. Strong engagement with communities and health workers and raising awareness and building trust is a key priority to ensure that COVID-19 vaccines are effectively deployed. UNICEF is working on the ground in addressing misinformation in various countries around the world. And some examples of this work include South Africa, where UNICEF is supporting the National Vaccine Communication Plan, working with a range of organizations on monitoring and tackling misinformation and building trust for the COVID-19 vaccine. UNICEF is also engaging at the local level with health workers and reaching communities with a multimedia truck. And the key tactic of the truck was to film short stories with people from the local community about their experiences with COVID-19, which were then played back on the truck screens. And that's really something that's been helping us drive the conversation and really getting more people vaccinated with the right kind of information. Now, when it comes to where has these this $100,000 that have been given so far gone around the world, and as Leslie mentioned, we were a little bit short of the $500 million that were deployed to over 140 countries. UNICEF has ensured a rapid and significant scale up of delivery since the summer, and we helped 40 countries reach 30% of COVID-19 vaccination coverage. Now, you can see more of our vaccine delivery at our dashboard. And this is a dashboard that will show you live where all the vaccines are being sent out around the world. So please go ahead and access that link.
All right, Alex,
David,
thank you.
Any other questions?
We answered the only one we have in a Q&A, and I'm very conscious of our time. We wanted to keep this to about an hour. So I want to maybe wrap up the Q&A part by mentioning a couple things. Both Alex and I are available to have further conversations with you and your organization. If you want to know more about UNICEF, even partnering with UNICEF, I'm sure Alex will be happy to talk with you about that. If you want to know more about our team or any of the work that the Methodist Church is doing, I'm happy to talk with you about that. So this need not be the end of your opportunity to ask further questions. With that, I do want to then hand off to Bishop Elaine and invite her to share with us some closing remarks and close our meeting. Bishop?
Thank you, David. And I just want to acknowledge a couple of people as we end. Dwayne Anders, who's the senior pastor at Boise First United Methodist Church, the Cathedral of the Rockies, as it is often called, is present in this, and I know has been very supportive of this effort. So thanks for being here, Dwayne. And there are a variety of other people. And also just to call attention to the chat posting that Cruz Edwin Santos entered about the inequity of vaccination access and information, educational information within immigrant communities in the U.S. And he's offered, Cruz Edwin has offered to assist in reaching out to those communities as well. And again, to those of you who, from the Greater Northwest in particular, who presented, but all of you who were in partnership and presented today. It's been a rich time. I want to close with there's a phrase from a book that's been in my head for a number of years. It's a book called Wild Goose Chase by Mark Batterson. And in it, he says, he's speaking to Christians, and he says, you know, there's some things you don't need to pray about. And he has a long list of them. But one of them is this: you don't have to pray about whether to offer a blessing if it is in your power to do so. This has come to my mind about this campaign. We have the power as United Methodists and other partners of faith, and through these partner agencies, and anybody, any person of goodwill, we have the power to fight this pandemic and to really make a difference. That's a blessing. We have the power to give the blessing of abundant life to people who otherwise don't have access to the protection that the vaccine offers. So I leave you with this blessing. May God bless and keep each of you, and keep all of us strong as we put our love into action to save lives. Go from this time in peace. Do the right thing yourself, and invite everybody you know to join you in this important life-saving work. God bless you.
Thank you, Bishop, and thank you for joining us, everyone. We'll be in touch.
Thank you,
Bye-bye now.
everyone.